Hello again everybody, back with another video. This one I'm calling Australia's Adverse Events for CV 1984 VA and I'm going to look specifically at the Australian government official figures for adverse events related to the VAXXs. I'm going to look specifically at the TGA part of their government website and the DAEN, the database of adverse event notifications. But first we need to make this a little bit more scary, so we better put those deadly killer bugs all around, and that makes it much more scary, doesn't it? So let's move on. So before I do, I'll just tell you that the last video I made on the CV 1984, I had it deleted and got a strike against the channel for that. They had deleted lots of videos in the past without any strikes, but obviously they're getting a bit more serious now. So I'll try to stick as much to the facts, and I won't give too many because you're not allowed to have opinions, and I'll try my very best not to trip myself up with that. But we'll get on with this now. So if you go into any kind of search engine, Google this time, type in TGA and then DAEN, it comes up with this link to a part of the Australian government website, and specifically one of the ones that will come right at the top will be this one, the database of adverse event notifications. So it relates to medicines, and as I say, it's part of the Therapeutic Goods Administration section. So if you actually click this, it comes up with this web page here, and I've had so much trouble when I did this earlier last week. I had so much trouble trying to get this thing to work, but as you can see here, this has appeared. It's saying medicines is currently unavailable due to performance issues resulting from higher numbers of requests. Now, I know, and I got the idea for this from a video my brother showed me of somebody recording his computer screen as he did the searches. He managed to get it to work. Now, whether or not lots of people as a result have gone onto it and it's slowed down, or they're deliberately slowing it down so people can't get the data, I don't know, but you can take a guess at that one. But I did manage to get it to work. I pushed and pushed to get, so I tried different times during the day, and eventually I did. So this is the search that you need to make. So if you click that, if it's working properly, it will come up with a search, and in that search you type in, for example, this word here, and it comes up with the medicines that are related to that specific disease. So as you can see here, there's 3 of them, and they've all been selected, and then you basically select a date range, so January the 1st 2021 to August the 18th. This is the latest it would let me go to when I did the search earlier last week. But it does cover the vaccination program, because the vaccination program started, and I'll show you later, in Australia on the 22nd of February. So then basically you click search. There we go. And it comes up with this page here. So this is the database of adverse event notifications for medicines, and this is the search here, and the search results for those specific VAXXs. So what you can see here is the number of reports, so there's nearly 50,000 of those. The number of cases with a single suspected medicine is basically most of those, and the number of cases where death was a reported outcome was 471. So reported deaths related to adverse events related to the VAXXs is 471. Now, I do have to stress, because otherwise YouTube will probably remove this, that they're saying an adverse event report does not mean that the medicine is the cause of the adverse event. Now, they can say that because it could be something else. But when you get 471, wouldn't you expect there to be some investigation trying to pull this and link it to a specific vaccine? But it doesn't. They just seem to be collecting and building this data up, very similar to the yellow card scheme in the UK, where the data is building up, but nobody seems to be looking at it or trying to link it. Surely, if you got this level of adverse events that come up under a search on that specific medicine, wouldn't it be ringing alarm bells? But anyway, so that is the reported deaths related to adverse events for that specific search of those specific medicines. Okay, so this is just showing when the vaccination programme in Australia started. So here it is, look, Monday the 22nd of February 2021. So that's when it started. So we started that database search before the vaccines were actually used. Well, I said that word then. So what I managed to do was download a PDF file from that website with a search. I've got that now saved, and I'll open it in PDF mode and scroll through it and add some commentary to it as I go through. And the reason I'm doing this and not on the website is when you try and scroll through the pages of data on the website, it is so clunky and slow. But I have the PDF, so let's take a look at that now. So this is the PDF that I managed to download with details of that search. So you can see here, look, 1st of the 1st 2021 to the 18th of August 2021, and these 3 COVID VA double X's. And you can see here it's a proper download, and basically what you get, it's a bit of information here about what it's all about, and then you get the tables with nearly 50,000 reported cases, were adverse events, and the number of cases where death was a reported outcome is 471. And you can see here, this is just one page, and there is many more. So this is 3 of 76. So you can see here the ones with the deaths. So there's the first page, scroll down, so there's the second, then the third, you can see, and so on. I can flick through them all, and you can pause and look at any page if you wish, but I'm just showing you what all those numbers are made up of. So every time you see it change, that's a new page. So I think it starts with the more severe ones and finishes with the less severe ones. So I'm just going to flick through these now, so you can see here how it's all made up. So you can see that on the web's page, but it's so slow and clunky, that database. I thought it was better to download the PDF while I got the opportunity, because trying to screenshot and film the active web page with the fact it keeps timing out was impossible. But you can see that is a proper download of that information with the same numbers on, and as you can see, it's a pretty long report and very thorough as well by the look of it. So let's move on. So there you go, significant number of adverse events, but as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean they were caused by the VA-XX. So what I've got here, this is from Worldometer info for Australia, and this is basically the deaths. And as with every country, they're just keeping a rolling tally of this year on year and building it up, which they've done for no other disease. But this was the day, February the 29th, 2020, the day before the first death started. So the first death was on basically the 1st of March 2020. So this is kind of specific because this is when my search started on that DAEN database. And you can see here that on the 1st of Jan, the deaths were 909. The vaccination programme here started on the 22nd, 2021. So it had a very significant time with no deaths, but then they started to vaccinate. So that's when that started, and this is the end of the surge. So the deaths have gone up from 909 to 971 to August the 18th. Now if you put those together, and I've just put the one over the other and added those two slides together with absolute brilliant skill, of course, and only joking. And you can see here on the 1st of Jan 2021 the deaths were 909, and on the 18th of August they were 971. So the difference is 62. So during that vaccination period that relates to that search I did, 62 people have allegedly died from COVID-1984. But look at this. This was an article that was in the Mail Online, and it says New South Wales Health switches to recording patients as dying with COVID instead of from, after finally acknowledged that many of the Australia's 993 casualties died from something else or had even recovered from the virus. So what are they admitting here? I think the significant word here is this one, many. Many doesn't mean two or three, does it? Many means a very kind of large proportion. And if we look at what they're doing in the UK, they're saying deaths within 28 days of a positive test for any reason. So they're doing the same thing basically across the world. Some are stating it directly, others aren't. So of those 62, you'd have to ask how many really actually died of the virus. So if we put that together, so this is the deaths with COVID versus the deaths reported as the outcome of an adverse event listed under the COVID VAXXs from the 1st of January to the 18th of August. So this is the deaths from the adverse event, 471, and this is the deaths, as I said, with COVID. But all this data is just sitting there, and it's not being reported or discussed or linked. You have to ask yourself, why on earth is that the case? If they're genuinely concerned with public health, potentially, and now bear in mind it doesn't necessarily mean it was caused by the you-know-what, but don't you think this looks a little bit alarming? That this is to stop this? But anyway, that's just my view. It does look strange, doesn't it? Let's have a look at Australia's vaccine rollout. So again, government website, here's the link at the top here, and we've got basically overall, so this is going back a few days, this was the 31st of August, so it's a few days old now. Kind of takes me a long time these days to get round to making these videos, but at this time the eligible people fully vaxxed was 35.7%, and the amount of people who'd had one dose was around 60%. So I know it's going up, but that's just showing you that, you know, there's probably potentially all the population is exposed to the virus, but only a certain percentage are exposed to the VAXX. But we've got that massive difference that I showed you before in numbers. So let's have a look at the state of Victoria. And the reason I'm looking at Victoria State here is that it has lots and lots of footage of this guy called Dan Andrews, who's been called Dictator Dan, a pretty soulless looking character. Obviously not a heart there at all, but we will have a look at what he says. But let's have a look at what they're doing at the moment in Victoria. So this was what came in on the 2nd of September in terms of restrictions. So you can freeze that and read it, but what I have done is I've just made it a little bit bigger, so hopefully you can read this. So you can't leave your home other than the 5 reasons here. So shopping for goods, caregiving, authorised work, exercise once a day or to get a COVID vaccination. And then there's a stay-at-home curfew in place between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. where you can't leave your home. There are a few very, very small set of reasons for why you can. Face masks must be worn indoors and outdoors whenever you leave your home. Face masks do not need to be worn indoors if you are working alone. You can remove your mask in a public place when consuming food, medicine, or a non-alcoholic drink. So obviously it's safe to take your mask off for a non-alcoholic drink, but if you've got an alcoholic drink, that dreaded bug's going to come and jump in when it's got its opportunity. Maybe it's attracted to alcohol. Sorry, I'm saying things I shouldn't. And here, face masks are recommended for primary schools age children, but they're not mandated. So what's going to happen there? And also, you've got a 5 kilometre range. But I do understand in New South Wales and Sydney and places like that, then it's actually a smaller area too. So they've got all those restrictions in place. Now, here's old dictator Dan here, always fiddling with his mask. Yeah. But what is the way out of it? So let's take some snippets of what he's been saying lately so you can see that.
So just before we go to questions, can I just put it a slightly different way? We had a very small number of cases. We couldn't have locked down any faster. We have an army of contact tracers. They couldn't have worked any harder than they have over these last 4 weeks. They've done an amazing job. Victorians have made enormous sacrifices. Every family, every community has made enormous sacrifices to get this job done. Sadly, we cannot now hold out hope for numbers to fall, but we have achieved so much already in limiting these numbers. Many would love to be standing up today reporting 120 cases. They're not. They're reporting 10 times that amount. So we've achieved a lot in these last 4 weeks. The key point now is, between now and when we get enough people vaccinated so that our nurses and doctors have got a fair fight, what do we fill that time in with? Do we fill it in with rampant transmission and thousands of extra cases and literally thousands of people in hospital? Or do we keep pushing these numbers down and keeping them lower than they otherwise would be while we vaccinate? They're our choices. As tough as this is, that's not a hard choice to make. It's very difficult, I know that. But no one should be in any doubt that letting this run, seeing our health system overrun, that would be very, very challenging indeed. Circumstances have changed, and thresholds with the notion of driving numbers down is one thing. The advice from the Chief Health Officer is that we are not going to be able to drive these numbers down. They're going to go up. And that means we have to manage the rate at which they go up and the amount by which they go up. The threshold that matters now, Mark, is the 70% first dose by on or about the 23rd of September. That's the threshold we're all working towards. What we're talking about, and we've been very clear about this, we're not in any way trying to oversell what's on offer on the 23rd. They are modest easings. Things like going further from your house, being out exercising for longer. That's not in any way inconsistent with the national plan. I wanted to speak a little bit about the vaccinated economy. I had a very lengthy and a very good discussion with the Prime Minister on Wednesday evening about a number of different things. And one of the things that we obviously agree on, and I stressed with him, was the notion that at 70 and more likely at 80% double dose, we will have opportunities to open up parts of the Victorian economy to those who have been vaccinated. Put it another way, when we get to those vaccination double dose thresholds as part of the national plan, the notion of a lockdown of the whole community is far less relevant. But what will, I think, become a bigger part of our response is a lock-out of many, many venues for those who are not vaccinated. Now that might seem a bit harsh, but I've said this before and I'll make the point again, that I'm not going to lock the whole state down to protect people who won't protect themselves. Yes, there are some supply issues with vaccine at the moment, but that by the time we get to 70 and 80%, everybody who wants to be vaccinated, I think, will have been given an opportunity to do so. So I think if you're not vaccinated, and you could be, then the chances of you booking a ticket at a sporting event, going to a pub, going to all manner of different places will be very, very limited. Perhaps the most important message today, apart from getting tested if you've got symptoms, go online right now, take one of those 50,000 AstraZeneca appointments. Don't wait for whatever announcements are made next week. Don't wait for the next lot of Singaporean or Polish vaccine to turn up, or some deal that might be done with the UK. That'll all be good, but that's uncertain. What is certain is that there's 50,000 appointments and your name can go beside one of them today. And then 6 weeks later you can get your second dose and you can be fully protected. There's no one in hospital at the moment on a ventilator who's been double dose vaccinated in our state. And I dare say there's no one even in New South Wales, as challenging as the circumstances are there. This is incredibly effective, like 90% effective against serious illness. Do it for yourself, do it for the people that you love and the people who love you, and do it for people you'll never meet. From a situation where, to protect the health system, we've got everybody locked down, we're going to move to a situation where, to protect the health system, we're going to lock out people who are not vaccinated and can be. If you're making the choice not to get vaccinated, then you're making the wrong choice. And for safety's sake, and back to that point about how much work our nurses have to do, as this becomes absolutely a pandemic of the unvaccinated and we open everything up, it's not going to be safe for people who are not vaccinated to be roaming around the place spreading the virus. That's what they'll be doing. So there's every reason to get vaccinated. But yes, there's going to be a vaccinated economy, and you get to participate in that if you are vaccinated. Now that's not right now, because of course there's many more people who want to get vaccinated than we actually can get through the system. But we're going to get to a point where everybody who can get vaccinated will have been offered the chance to do so. And we are not going to have a situation, well, at least not in Victoria, where we lock the whole place down to protect people who won't protect themselves. The Prime Minister has written to everybody who's 60 and over and indicated to them that you are eligible for AstraZeneca, and if you want Pfizer, then you will be in the queue behind everyone else. That is to say, you'll be in the queue behind 12-year-olds, because they can only get Pfizer.
Well, there you go. What about that? What a piece of work that person is. But as I say, just a puppet, but still as evil as anything to stand there and push it. Not a mention of any kind of adverse events, very much like it is in America and in Europe and in the UK. Data's being collected, but it's never been properly associated and investigated with the medicines we've been talking about. And massive drive. This is clearly enormous coercion to drive the Australian people to get the jabs. They are desperate for them to take it. And they're even going to be locking them down all the way through to that target, and probably a little bit afterwards. And basically, if you're an unvaxxed person, then you're going to be very, very badly discriminated against. And it sounds like is almost turning the people against them. So it's not going to be good for unvaxxed people. And I'm sure Australia seems to be a bit of a trialling ground for things, and it could be coming to a town or city or country near you at any time. But that's all I've got to say for now. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and goodbye.